Hello, everyone. I'm Madison Howe. I'm an audiologist at Arkansas Children's, and today I have the honor and privilege of getting to interview past SENTAC President Dr. Gresham Richter. Dr. Richter is the Chief of Pediatric Otolaryngology at Arkansas Children's Hospital. He's the Vice Chair of Otolaryngology at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. He serves as the Director for the Vascular Anomaly Center at Arkansas Children's, and he also served as SENTAC President in 2021 and is the current Program Chair for the upcoming SENTAC 2022 annual meeting. Good morning, Dr. Richter.
Good morning, Madison. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, we're excited. We want to learn more about your journey with SENTAC and what you would tell people that are curious about joining. So
Sure.
why don't we dive in? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your career and how you got into pediatric otolaryngology?
Well, that's a good question. I went to medical school thinking I was going to be a psychiatrist. My plan was to enter the field of psychiatry and work in that practice. And when I went to medical school, I met somebody who was a leader really in business, and I had a side interest in the business world. But he was a head and neck surgeon. So he introduced me to ENT as a potential career pathway as I worked with him on these other projects. And then as I realized that I had a love for children and I wanted to work with children. So then I decided that I would want to be a pediatric surgeon. The beauty behind ENT, though, is that no matter what part of your practice, if you go into private or you go into a fellowship, half of your practice most of the time will be pediatric. And so I felt ENT was a good pathway. And then, of course, as I continued down that road, I realized I only wanted to take care of kids. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, not many people can say they saw the business side of getting into the medical field.
True. True.
So how did you first get involved in SENTAC? How did you hear about it? What brought you in to the SENTAC realm?
Uh, my first introduction to SENTAC was when I was a fellow. I was a fellow at Cincinnati Children's, and um, year after year, Cincinnati Children's would have a lot of podium presentations, and they introduced the idea of the society to me as a fellow, and I just sent in 4 or 5, I think, different abstracts that year, and was able to present. So, along with my other co-fellows, we had a kind of a cadre of people that we just, that every year our plan was to send abstracts to SENTAC. Yeah.
Thinking back on that, were you anxious about it? Like what were your thoughts going into your first SENTAC presentation, and then how do you feel after you got through with it?
It's funny that you mention it because my first presentation was on tracheal esophageal fistula and how to repair them, which is really, I mean, it's a aerodigestive kind of topic. And I really knew very little about the subject at the time because I was new to the area. But thanks to my mentor, encouraged me to present on it. And it's awkward to first step on the podium as a new member of the or new participant in their society, and to realize that it's not just your own field, but it's speech pathologists that have a different perspective and audiologists that can add to your knowledge base, and so it's a different audience that you have to present to. So I was nervous, and it was but got through it, I think, pretty well, and was happy that I did it.
I think that's one thing that's so cool when we're at the meetings is just you can kind of tell the newer fellows and students that are presenting, they're always a little nervous, but afterwards people come up and ask questions, and it's such a welcoming environment for sure.
Yeah, that's the key to SENTAC, really, is that and then it spurs conversations in the hallway, and some of these more larger formal meetings where everybody's suit and tie and dressed to the nines and have something to some show about it. We don't see that at SENTAC. It's more of a casual environment where we can get just feel comfortable asking anybody, and no matter what, I guess, level they are within their career, what level they are within, or what service they're in, you can have an easy conversation with somebody, and everybody seems so approachable.
It's so true. I remember after my first conference that you got me to come along for, and I think I was sitting down at breakfast one morning with Joan Ardvison and had no idea who she was and was just picking up casual conversation. And then later on, I think you kind of were like, that's, that's who this is. And she was a president and she's a legacy. And I just was like,
Yeah.
she was so approachable. And I love
Oh
that
yeah.
SENTAC.
Yeah.
It's
And
interesting.
yeah, it's somebody who I had followed her career for years, and to be able to just, walk up to her and ask her a question about swallowing problems, it's crazy to get that input. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice.
It's a great thing. Well,
Hmm.
obviously, you came a long way from your first presentation as a fellow to becoming SENTAC president. How did you go about that? Did you serve on committees, or how did you find your path to the presidency?
I mean, it's a typical pathway. Yes, I was asked to be involved in a couple different committees, and then over time, I guess I met mustard, and people recognized that I could actually get some work done. I was subsequently asked to be in line for the treasurer position, which I was happy to do because I have background in that, and I had done that with another society. And unfortunately, I was voted in as the new treasurer. When I became the treasurer, then I was really pushing to get a management company to help SENTAC, and it really was a challenge to convince a society that was used to having just one person that helped kind of run the society with the board, to change that to a management company strategy. And because there's expense associated with it, and everybody was concerned that if you raise your expenses, then that puts SENTAC at risk of no longer being successful, or actually losing, going into bankruptcy essentially, and not being able to afford it. Fortunately, we convinced the board to move forward with having affinity strategies with us, and since then we've been just ballooning. I mean, really, have just blossomed. I think as a society in more ways than one. So that's that. I guess from that role and responsibility, and looking at the financial piece of it to make sure that we would actually be able to support it, that led me to more leadership positions.
I think that was a great move too, because we're all providers. Our minds are oriented a little differently and not on business and money. And I think I've just felt like we've had a lot more time and energy to focus on what we want SENTAC to be as providers, not having to worry about the business side of things. So that was a
Yeah.
great goal. What other goals did you have while you were president?
And I know you've heard me talk about this many times. I really wanted to open the door uh, of our society to more speech pathologists, more audiologists, and really get the word out, because I think there was a group of ENTs and a group of audiologists and audio and speech pathologists that were really comfortable with, and nurse practitioners or other providers that knew what SENTAC was, but the word wasn't spreading. So the
Mhm.
mission was to spread it as much as we can. And during my presidency, we basically revamped all the committees around that concept. Providing access for those who didn't know this SENTAC existed, and that included creating a communications team, where we could do webinars and change a website, and then we can create a strategy. And this is all because we had a management company, and we created a strategy so that we could put more information on the website. And so there was a committee designed to get more information for families and for audiologists and speech pathologists to look at and to use it as a resource, and creating a job board, and all these things were designed to kind of balloon the society, not just in the ENT world, but really in the ancillary specialties, such as audiology and speech pathology and pediatrics, um, and of course our advanced practice providers. So,
Yeah. I think we definitely can't talk about your presidency without acknowledging the time and the climate of the world that it happened in. You were president-elect when the pandemic started, and then you took over presidency that year when things were at the highest. What things did you have to change? We were the first hybrid conference. What challenges did you face trying to keep the society going in the middle of a global pandemic?
Well, I first really, in that situation, I need to recognize basically all the other people that were involved in the society in a leadership standpoint, Stephanie, and Daniela and, yourself and Javen. Everybody was so engaged, in order to make the society successful, especially during a time that we were challenged. I think the, decision to have a virtual meeting was a hard one and actually turned out to be probably the best thing we could have done, because we had more people join that year than any other year. We created a pathway that was easier for people to join that year as they registered for the meeting. They could actually become a member at the same time. We had hundreds of people from all over the United States and from other parts of the world. So then we had created an international kind of presence at the same time. So I don't honestly, there was a little bit of a blessing in disguise, as a result of having the pandemic. I mean, we really rallied. And then during that rally period, we realized that we actually opened the doors to more people through a virtual meeting. So, however, I will tell you though, and this, one of my favorite things about SENTAC is that having that camaraderie. And every year since I was a fellow, I would bring my kids, my wife, to the meeting, and it was a time for us to really to get together as families as well, and to kind of see each other in a casual, meeting environment, and not feel pressured, during the whole meeting to be at every event and everything, but to be able to bring your family there too, and to get them involved and let them see, see your friends that you usually interact with on a national basis. So even though we had a great virtual meeting, I would love the fact that we're going back to the in-person meeting, and we're going to have a 50th anniversary this year. This is just amazing time for SENTAC. We have more than, I think, 600 members now. I mean, when I started as president, I think we had like 300 members. I mean, it's our presence because of you, Madison, on the websites and internationally is so much greater in the fields of audiology and speech, et cetera. So it's such an exciting time for SENTAC and continue to get bigger.
It really is. And I think, like you said, the pandemic challenged us to grow in different ways and use our resources. And I think you handled that so well as president and navigating those waters for us.
Thanks.
I can't ever picture you being retired, but if you ever do get to that point, what will you look back on and remember most? Like, what are some great memories you have from SENTAC?
Well, my first SENTAC, which we already talked about, I remember all of us fellows sitting living in the same basically room uh, in Florida in order to get through the meeting, and we all just basically rallied in one room. There's like five of us sleeping in the same quarters, and in a few beds. I think a couple people were on the floor, and it really just kind of emphasized the atmosphere of kind of being together and working together as a team. I mean, late nights getting our presentations ready. I mean, it was such a great time. That's one memory. Another memory is our time in San Diego at one of our last in-person meetings, and I'll tell you the fun that we had at the reception, the fun that we had at the meeting itself was fantastic. It was dancing, and my one of my closest friends, Deepak Mehta, I remember watching him dance with Robin Cotton in the middle of the meeting, who was both past presidents of the society, and just having just a blast. I mean, not to mention, Robin Cotton and his daughter, both of which were society presidents, all having a good time in one setting. I mean, you can't beat that. You can't see that in other meetings.
For sure. I've never been on the dance floor with so many different nationally and internationally known providers just getting down on the dance floor. It's a cool atmosphere. I
Oh
agree.
yeah.
Great memory. Well, I can definitely say thank you for getting me involved in SENTAC. I know there's so many of us out there that can attribute our joining to you and the wonderful things you've done for SENTAC and pulling people along. So I wanted to end with, what would you say the future looks like for SENTAC, and what would you say to someone who's thinking about joining?
I think it's continued growth, but maintaining collegial atmosphere amongst the different specialties. I can see us continuing to have an international presence more than we ever have before, because we have colleagues like Sohit Kanotra that is bringing other people in from other countries. Our current president, Daniela Carvello, is also bringing other people from other countries to participate in SENTAC. We're not just an American society. We are a society dedicated to the advancement of ear, nose, and throat health in children, right? So that is all over the world. And you know, the relationships that we're building in these international forums now is just wonderful. And I think you'll continue to see SENTAC grow in that fashion. And I hope so, because there are gobs of pediatric audiologists and speech pathologists and advanced practice providers and ENTs around the world that really want to be able to collaborate and to work with you know, others within the specialty in different countries. And I think SENTAC is a center place for that. I really believe that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for serving as president, for planning an awesome convention for us this year, the 50th celebration 2020 in Philadelphia. Everyone watching, be there. It's going to be a great time. Any closing words for us, Dr. Richter?
Thank you, Madison, for interviewing me today. And I just, you know, encourage everybody to get involved in SENTAC. It's a beautiful society of wonderful people, and there's so many opportunity, not just within the society itself and to learn from it, but you can do webinars, and you can get engaged in the community and the committees, et cetera. So I think it's a great opportunity for someone who is young in the field, who wants to grow professionally, and who wants to grow also in getting to know more contacts around the country that are doing the same thing. So I think it's a great place for anybody. So thank you for this opportunity to
Of course.
interview.
Thank you, Dr. Richter.
Okay.